This morning, I woke up early and I was gonna go to the gym, but right when I woke up, I was about to go back to sleep, but I pushed myself because I haven't been in a while, and so I got up and I got in the car and I was going to the gym, and then last second I said, I haven't been hiking in a while, and I love sometimes to just go on a hike, and sometimes to do it alone. It's very peaceful, and so I ended up turning and actually going to the mountain to hike. And it was very nice, very peaceful. And on my way down, I saw this old man who was coming also down from the mountain. And we kind of ran into each other. And he was making jokes with people here and there. And then he said something to me, and I said something back. And it was a nice, short, brief conversation. And I kept on walking. And you know how when you encounter something or somebody like that, and it's like a brief encounter, then you have to go your separate ways. But the guy stayed next to me, and I was trying to go forward. I was trying to pause so that he can go forward, but he stayed next to me. And so I thought that he's just going to be with me the rest of the hike, so I might as well talk to him. And so I was talking to him, just asking him some questions. He was asking me. And then he told me that his wife had cancer. And I was asking him a couple things, and we were just going back and forth. And then he turned to me, he said, "Are you a doctor?" I said, "No, I'm a priest, kind of. Different type of doctor for the soul." And he was very shocked to hear that I was a priest, and his face lit up. And then he started to talk to me even more and to open up a lot about his life. And by the end of it, we had a great conversation, and I realized that at the beginning I was being kind of selfish. First of all, I realized that I could have been home sleeping at this point. I could have been home on my phone, watching TV, or doing any other thing. Or I could have ran away when the guy started to talk to me because I wanted my own alone time. But I realized that because I gave this guy a little bit of time, he felt so happy, and he felt so much at peace because of our conversation. And it made me realize that a lot of the time in my own life, and maybe even we struggle with this, we sometimes are not very generous with our time. And that's kind of how we are able to show that we're willing to sacrifice for another person, is if we're willing to spend time with them and to care about them. And so many times in our lives, we are tempted to just give in to whatever is in front of us, or to just distract ourselves with anything other than sitting with a person and having a conversation with them. Having a human face-to-face interaction with a human being. That's what it means to have a relationship with a person and to actually love a person. In this parable that we heard from Jesus, he speaks about who is your neighbor. Because this teacher of the law wanted to test Christ, and Jesus told him that you answered correctly when you said that you have to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and you have to love your neighbor as yourself to get to heaven. And then the guy said, "Well, who is my neighbor?" And then Jesus gives the story that we've probably all heard, the story of the Good Samaritan. And it's the story of a man who is the least expected, the most least expected one to have given attention to the Jewish man that got hurt. The Samaritans were seen as the enemies of the Jews. And yet it's the Samaritan who leaves everything. He leaves his whole life. He goes and he gives of himself to this guy. He sacrifices of himself for this guy. And the word that's used here is actually very relevant. The word that St. Luke, or that we read in the Aramaic, in the surah that we read, it doesn't just say the man walked up to him. No, it says qurule ille. He approached him. And the word qurule has the same root as the word qurbana, to approach, to offer something, to lift up, like we say, lift up your hearts, lift up your minds to God. That's what it means, to offer yourself. And so this man just in that very act of going toward the person who was hurt, he was offering himself. And this is an image of Christ. This is what Jesus does for us. Jesus is the one who left everything. He left his throne in heaven and he came down to earth to be with us, to show us himself, to have a relationship with us. And so when this man asked Christ, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus explained, this is how you love your neighbor, is that you love everybody. And you're willing to sacrifice for everybody, even your enemies. That's what it means to love your neighbor. And this is what Jesus did for us. It's not just I love those who love me, but I'm willing to sacrifice myself. And brothers and sisters, so much of the time, we are not willing to sacrifice even for our family members, even for those who are close to us. If we're not willing to sacrifice and to give of ourselves for those that are close to us, how can we live up to the Christian call of sacrificing for even our enemies, which is what the Lord says here that we have to do in the gospel? This is what is required of us. And it could start with us giving time to others, giving of ourselves, putting away our phones, for example. Yes, it's good to spend time with each other, but imagine all of the time, think about all of the time that we spend with each other, but we're either on our phones or watching TV, or the kids are in their rooms and then the parents are in the living room or just not even home sometimes. Just think about how much blessings you would get in your life if you actually put the phones away for a little bit and you actually spoke to one another. If you just walked outside, if you had a meal together and put the phones away and actually spent time with one another. When you spend time with each other, you're showing each other that you're sacrificing yourself and that you are prioritizing this person. That's how it works with our neighbors, with human beings. Now think about how it works with God. There's kind of a gap in the story, because in the story that Jesus says, he's talking about how to love your neighbor, and that's very important. And he answered the guy's question. But St. Luke, who's writing the gospel, knows that he didn't really explain how to love God very well in that story. And so maybe there's a reason why St. Luke puts this other story after the story of the Good Samaritan. It's just inserted right there. It's the story of Martha and Mary. Jesus is talking about doing a lot for your neighbor. And then, right after the story of the Good Samaritan, we see this woman, Martha, who was doing a lot for Jesus. She welcomed him in her home, and she's serving him. She's doing all these things for him. And then it says Mary, her sister, was there, sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to him. And then Martha went to Jesus, and she said, "Why don't you tell her to help me? Because I'm doing all of this by myself." And then Jesus said, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious about many things. One thing is necessary, and Mary has chosen the better portion, which will not be taken from her." What was that one thing that was necessary that Mary was doing? She was sitting at the feet of Jesus. She was spending time with him. And obviously, there is work to be done. But the most important work that we have to do is to love God and is to have a relationship with him. That's the most important thing we have to do in our lives. And from our relationship with God and our love for him, he will guide the rest of our lives. He will guide the rest of our actions, and he will help us to work for the good of others. If only we love him first. If only we prioritize him. And so I was speaking about loving your neighbor and spending time with your neighbor. But how much time do we spend with God? And if we don't, what are we telling God about our priorities in life? If I spend so much time on my phone, so much time watching TV, so much time with my friends, but I barely give 2 minutes a day to pray, what am I saying to God? How much do I love him at that point? And the thing is, the gospel doesn't say we have to do so much. What was Mary doing? She was just sitting there. She put away all distractions, and she was sitting there at the feet of Jesus, learning from him. And so I would strongly encourage you, brothers and sisters, yes, spend time with people, quality time with people, especially your family and friends, but also spend quality time with God every day. This is how we show that we love others, And this is how we show that we love God. We prioritize Him in our lives. Obviously, it starts with Mass. Some people spend so much time doing other things on the weekends. They go to parties. Even people who go to Shera but they miss Mass, that's a sin. As nice as a Shera is, you have to go to Mass. Come to Mass on Saturday so you can spend the rest of the day at the Shera. Because that shows that we're not prioritizing God, that we have other priorities in our life. If we don't make time to go to Mass in the week, if we don't make time to pray during our day, we are telling God, I don't have time for you. I have time for all of this other stuff, but I don't have time for you. Brothers and sisters, the Lord is there for us and He gives us everything. We just have to respond to Him. We have to open our hearts and accept the gift of love that He gives us in our lives so that we can also give back to Him and give back to others, and so that we can love Him with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves.